Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good, and you?
That's good. Excellent. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. I had to jump onto an Apple because I've got an Android, and the Android was giving me a couple of hassles to actually get you. I'm trying to find a nice space where there's no sun or reflection where I can sit.
You look excellent. Very handsome.
Now I know you're lying.
Yeah, I got the same
Okay,
problem back there. So
so I'm all ears.
yeah, it's great to see you. Yeah, thanks everybody who's ever out there. If you can give me a heads up in the comments, looks like Chris Hobson, John Guido, a bunch of other guys are out there. We're here with Ian Macleod from Macski Waveski. Your name is synonymous with wave skiing in the industry, and great to be here. This is great. We got you for an hour. I know you're a busy man, and thank you so much. Just a little bit about me and where I'm at on the East Coast, New York. Got some guys in Jersey as well, and believe it or not, other than a little pack of guys out in Long Island, a handful, there's not a lot going on as far as wave ski and surf kayaking, as far as competitions and retail stores, and even for me, how to even find out about this great sport. And we're not going to go into your whole thing because everyone out there, you can go to Ian's website for all that stuff. So we'd rather pick your brain and let you talk about what you want to talk about. Like, I will say this before everyone comments. I always, take everyone's comments, and it's great. But you're a unique individual because not only are you come from a wave ski family, you've been a
Hmm.
competitor, you've been a shaper and designer, and you're also an owner or proprietor, if you will, and trying and actually making a living at it, and it's your bread and butter.
Hmm.
So, your comments and your advice come in a totally different area than I think most people that are watching you right now. So, yeah, let us know what's going on with you today and your life right now.
Well, I've basically just been busy in the last 3 years waiting for the world titles to be, come back onto line so I could get back into competition mode. And in between that, I've just been manufacturing boards, and I've basically been out of the water for 3 years. Spending a lot of time in research and design, testing boards out here and there, new shapes, like once or twice a year, going into the water just to test the shapes out to make sure that they work. But not being very much in the water as a competitor, basically because of this whole world shutdown and the World Championships being postponed. Um, which has allowed me to get back into just designing boards, trying out new things, and then also listening to what people want out of their boards so that I could design something very specific for them. But yeah, this year obviously making a big effort to get back into shape, get rid of the COVID body, and get back into shape, and compete in November in California.
Wow, that's excellent. It's kind of crazy here. I mean, I'm a little new to the sport. I guess I could say I'm very new to the sport. I've been a board surfer my whole life, and something just happened, something clicked, and one thing led to another, and wanted to try something new, and it's just a lot of fun. And I love to paddle. I like the experience of paddling,
Yeah.
and started with a Cobra Strike, which I still have, and have a sit-in kayak. And my wife says, "You seem like a wave ski guy, Richie. Like, I'm like, but honey, it's cold up here. Like right now, it was 10 this morning in New York, and the water is like 39. And
Oh.
so I love the whole experience of being closer to the water, which is
Yeah.
when I'm standing on a board. In our surf here, for the most part, I'm looking down on the wave. When I'm sitting, I've just got a nice Zen experience of me and the wave and getting closer to it. And it's always overhead
Yeah.
because seriously, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's something new. I mean, a lot of people don't really understand the perspective that you are when you're actually riding the wave from a seated position down up to a standing position,
Yeah.
and the dynamics that go with the design that goes with it. Being able to sit, stand and sit and different positions. So, on the design side of things, with regards to how you actually position yourself on the board, makes a huge difference. I mean, the sit inside kayaks, very different to the sit on top wave skis.
Yeah.
When you're designing wave skis and when you're designing kayaks, so there are, little um, changes that you would have to make when you're sitting lower down to the center of gravity, lower to the bottom of the deck of the board, and sitting inside the deck. So it does make a big difference for us as designers to understand, you know, the parameters that we have with regards to sitting inside versus sitting on top. And also, as you say, everything's overhead heights when you're sitting down.
Yeah, it's interesting. And of course, you're running a business as well.
Yeah.
What I also forgot to mention was it's kind of crazy, like you and Chris Hobson. You're also designing and selling some of the same boards that other people are going to be riding to compete against you in a sense. So, it's just kind of weird. It's like if Kelly Slater or John Florence is putting boards out just to have them show up in the lineup against them. I will say. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just an interesting.
It is an interesting dynamic, and you've got to handle it very carefully when you're on the beach. This is all I know. My dad started the company in 1979.
Yeah.
My dad competed as a manufacturer, but I don't think that there's any difference with regards to respect in the water. Obviously, you go out there; it's a war zone. You fight for every single wave. Old school. If you come from my 80s, 90s, early 90s era, there was a lot of hustling.
Mm-hmm.
You had to catch 3 waves in 20 minutes instead of the 2 waves in 20 minutes now.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of, snaking, hassling, jockeying for position, pushing up the point. And it gets a bit, the war zone out there it's out there. It's in the water. You're fighting. I've competed against my brother. I've competed against my father. I've competed against ladies. I've competed against, people 3 times my age when I was a kid. So it's all about respect for your opposition, respect for the ocean, and respect for other people's opinions. But it's still a war zone. It doesn't matter what you ride, how you ride. At the end of the day, you're all going for the same thing. You want to get through to the next round and ultimately win the contest.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you and I spoke a little bit off camera, and of course, you don't want to give away designs and things like that. But you said something that was interesting. I had no idea that. I believe you said there are different types of skis. I think you said sitting to the back. Some you sit in the middle. Some are more riding to the nose. I mean, is that really?
Yeah. I mean, like let's take, for example, we take Rhys Duncan, arguably the absolute best waveski surfer that we've ever seen. He's 11 times world champion. He's phenomenal. He's the current World Open champion, and he's the current World Masters champion. Rhys is, and I'm guessing measurements now, Rhys is probably 5'7", 5'6", 5'7", and he's probably 70, 75 kilos. So, and then you have me. I'm 6'2", and I'm, competing. When I'm competing at 100 kilos, which is 220 pounds. So it's you can't shape the same board for Rhys Duncan that you're shaping for John Macleod. And it goes to say that no one has the same weight and ability, and so everybody's going to have a different type of board that they're looking for. I can shape a board that's extremely fast, but it's going to be extremely difficult to turn it. So you sacrifice speed for maneuverability, and vice versa. You sacrifice maneuverability for speed. So it all depends on the surf conditions, what type of board you want, and then we start with those dynamics. I like to shape boards that are more maneuverable and have less speed. Basically, because not everybody is extremely powerful and have a powerful way of surfing. Rhys Duncan, Matthew Bubba Ritt, Christo, myself, Virgil, they all have powerful styles of surfing, and therefore they can have very specific type of boards. They can sit further back on the tail, and they can use a lot more of their core and energy transfer from their bodies to their boards. Whereas without getting, disrespectful here, where a lady is a lot, shorter in stature, their weight distribution is different to a man, where you regard a man's weight distribution and power comes from shoulders. Ladies' weight distribution and power comes from, hip area. So therefore, I like to move the ladies a little bit further forward on the boards, change the V setup on the boards, change the rocker on the boards, and let them surf off the center of the boards. So there's a lot of dynamics that we've got to go through as designers. We have, number one, we have the nose to tail rocker on the board. In other words, how much nose kick and how much tail kick have you got? And obviously, the less tail kick, if you put an ironing board out there, it's going to be extremely fast. But there's no way that you're going to turn that ironing board in a pocket of a wave and come up 90 degrees and do a pocket air. And then you have the side to side V's or concaves. You've got to choose which one you want. One will give you hold and suck. The other one will give you lift and release. One is good in onshore conditions. One is good in offshore conditions. So there are a lot of dynamics. I like to design my boards around general. Everything is generally, onshore and offshore conditions, big and small, so that the guys can get out there and have one board that goes out there and performs for them day in and day out.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my dilemma. Like John Guido, he's here now, saying that's why we need a quiver, and the pros do, and I'm just a weekend warrior, a couple hours before work, and then maybe there's no waves before work that day, and the way it goes. So you had some interesting designs on your website, like the Dolphin. I've seen the T-Rex, and there's some SOT guys that are on here, and we like a little bit of comfort, a back band maybe. I know TJ down in Florida has the leg straps, and obviously these aren't pros, that's why Kelly Slater and John Florence are riding short, light boards. But the guys like me that want to go out and cruise, I see you got many models to accommodate. And I guess those are a starting point. Once you find out my weight, my height, what maybe I want to get out of the wave, because all these you're doing and shaping them per customer, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I basically try to listen to what are their surf conditions. Height, weight are very important to us as designers. Obviously, we need to get the volume right. And let me start off. I'm not a volume type of person. So I know that there's other people out there that would measure the volume of a board and say this board is so many liters. I don't really care how many liters your board is, because if you're putting all the literage on the nose, it's pointless. Let's take a cooler box, for instance. They also measure cooler boxes in literages. You're not going to take a cooler box out in the water. It's going to push water, and it's just going to displace water in a way different way that you're trying to, you're trying to surf a wave. So for me, it's where the buoyancy and flotation come from. So your volume, where do I place the volume? Do I place the volume on the center line? Do I place the volume at the tail, the middle of the board, the rail of the board? And that all depends on the person's ability. So I can change all of those things up. Every board that I make, I look at who I'm doing this for, what we've discussed, what surf conditions they like. In other words, for argument's sake, if I've got a person that's going to be surfing lazy waves, I'm going to give him a board that's going to have medium to higher volume rails, where I'm going to be getting his buoyancy and he's popping out quicker, so that he can catch the swell before it actually breaks, and he can ride the swell a lot longer before it actually breaks. But I still give them the edgy rails, the setup on the fins, so that they can actually surf the wave. Whereas if you're going to be shaping a board for a guy that's going to be, take 2 strokes and he's in the wave, you could take the volume off the rail and put it on the center of the board, and then shift it to the tail of the board so you can shift the rider further back. So there's many dynamics. It's just not shape a board and hope it's going to work. There are many dynamics. I have all the templates in my workshop, from my dad's days all the way through to my days, where I can pull any template out, know that it's going to work, or I can mix and match templates. Where I can take a dolphin template and put a different top on it, where, because the guy weighs 280 pounds, a dolphin is just not going to have enough vertical volume on the center line. So I could take the dolphin rocker out, and I can put a T-Rex top on that, and then give him the vertical volume that I'm looking for, so that I can get the guy to float the board. There are basics that everybody sticks to, but over 30 years, I believe I've managed to come up with my own designs that have slightly different and unique looks to them. There's other people out there that have their, and no one's right and no one's wrong. It's what the designer feels that you need for those conditions, and they all operate. If you look at the boards out there that people that are winning contests, there's a whole bunch of people. I'm sure you've seen, like, Nathan Eads down in Peru. He's got a very distinctive look on his Waveskis. He's understated Waveskis. He's got a very distinctive look, and I as a designer can see what he's going for. And Rhys Duncan has got a very distinctive look, and I believe I've got a distinctive look. I've got many different ones. I've got the Dolphin range, and I've got the high performance range, but I do want to include the beginner guys. The biggest thing is to get the guys onto the board, balance the board, and catch the wave the first day. That's important to me.
Yeah, that's it. We talked briefly about training and you teaching, probably one-on-one or in a group. And it's funny, I had a whitewater guy come up, and a super nice guy, this guy Charlie, and he never rode a wave before. So I come at it as a surfer, and I've never really kayaked before and rolled. This is my first year. So didn't really know how to teach him. I just said, go left, and lean. So he toppled over, I think, 2 waves in a row.
Yeah.
Because I forget that it's a different world, and you just got to, a little bit of trial and error. But you mentioned something to me, what you like to do, which is what I probably should have had Charlie do, which is what we'll do next time when he's up for the summer, which is drop into a wave and do a hard turn and kick out of the wave. And so can you elaborate on maybe a few steps of what you might do with a beginner, maybe even intermediate or advanced, if you can, a couple of general tips?
Yeah. So if it's a beginner that's never surfed before, I'd like him to, get the ability to catch a wave, take off, go straight down the wave. So his concentration, you're not trying to, give him too much information right in the beginning. Yeah. The information that his brain is trying to understand is, how am I going to balance this board? And then how am I going to paddle it into a wave and take off? They don't want to think about a bottom turn straight away.
Right.
So basically what you got to do, I sometimes hop on the back of a board with my flippers. In South Africa, we call them flippers. I think they call them fins over here.
Yeah.
And so I'd get on the back of the board and be their engine and kick them into the boards, like I do with my High Five Foundation athletes that are paralyzed from certain different degrees of paralysis. And I get onto the back of the board and I kick them into the surf, and then I actually steer them, so they get the sensation and the motion of catching a wave. And then eventually, after day 3, I let them loose. So I get off, I help them get into the wave, and then I let them go by themselves, and then I go and swim back up to them and I kick them back out. And so it's all baby steps. You must realize, when you've got a young kid and you're teaching him how to ride a bicycle, you're not going to tell him how to steer the bicycle. You're first going to tell him how to balance the bicycle.
Yeah.
And so when you take his training wheels off, I'm on the back as a training wheel. So when you take the training wheels off, his brain is now going to think of one thing only, is, how am I going to balance this board? Yeah. And so now he's using different muscles, different muscle groups, and now he's trying to understand how am I balancing this board, and you bring a dynamic in you to balancing the board, going over white water, which is, got turbulence on the other side. So there's a lot of dynamics in this whole thing. Yeah. And then only at that point, once they've learned how to paddle and catch and balance the wave, and you would start with the bottom turn. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want them to do anything other than just the bottom turn. I want them to feel the sensation of the bottom turn, because going from a bottom turn to a top turn, it's just too much. Yeah. So teach them how to kick out. So right. Take off, now you kick out. Right. And then with all of that, you're creating muscle memory. And I don't want them to think about balance. I want them to get on and think about catching this wave and doing one turn. Yeah. And then you introduce the top turn. So it's all baby steps. It's just like any other sport. You don't teach a guy in basketball to dunk the ball the first day. Yeah. You got to teach them how to dribble and how to throw. And there's a lot of, techniques in the throwing. So you teach them all the basic moves first, and then you start introducing, different things as you progress. So yeah, as a beginner, I do teach them, slowly taking off, balancing, taking off, and then the bottom turn. And then I start bringing in the top turns and things like that. Yeah, and I always relate to a car around a racetrack. If you are racing around a racetrack, you have 7 or 8 turns. Each one of those turns have got different approaches, different speeds that you're approaching the turn at. And, your exits are all different. So you must understand every turn on a waveskis depends on what's the next move. What's going to happen after your bottom turn? Is the wave running away from you? Do you have to do a bottom turn that's going to be extended out? Or are you able to do a tighter bottom turn and come off the top as a top turn right in the pocket? And that all is determined about, what type of wave you're riding. So yeah, it's really difficult to, try and get in golf. When you teach a person how to chip and putt, you can teach them all day technique, but you cannot teach them how to feel that.
Yeah, and it takes years of experience. I just remember learning to surf when me and my brother were 14, and we were we had no formal instruction. It was go straight for a little while, and then, okay, let's watch the videos. These guys are angling down the wave. And then it's like bottom turn, top turns, a floater here and there, and just, start to push the boundaries and progress a little bit and try new things.
But I also think it's about the person are you spending the time in the, are you going out there? Are you actually trying to improve yourself? Are you working hard at this? I don't see any sportsman out there, top sportsman in the world. I don't see any sportsman out there that doesn't go out and put the effort in. He's not, gets up and does the training, 5 hours of training, on the soccer field, on the tennis court. It's all about training. You don't become good overnight. It's all about training and learning, watching other people. For instance, I used to watch a guy in my hometown. His name was Craig Seal. He was the best rider in our hometown, and I mimicked what he did. So I would watch him, I would study him, and then I would try and execute what I saw. And then I got better and better. And when I got to a certain point, I started developing Ian Macleod. After I figured out how hard do I do the bottom turns, where do I do the bottom turns, and then I started, developing my own style. So it's very important to watch videos, but not only watch videos and be wowed by the video, but watch their body movement, where their shoulders are, what their hips are doing, what their legs are doing.
Exactly. Yeah, I started to compile a YouTube playlist, and the slow-mo ones are great, slow motion. I'm starting to dissect when they're hitting the top turn and doing their roundhouse cutbacks. I was playing a video, South African Waveski Championships 2017, Macski. Looks like Chris Jones posted it. So, even just slowing it down and seeing how far you're laying out, to get it on its rail. And I mean, some are tighter, some are longer, but you read the wave, and from competition, and even if you're not a competitor, the most exciting part is in the pocket. So it's great to shoot out on the shoulder, but you're coming back to hit the lip
Yeah.
and to get right into the pocket. And, that's where the scoring happens in competitions. And it's also the most exciting part of the wave,
Mm.
but
It is. It's sort of like, I mean, people get disappointed when they get given boards and they don't operate like one of the top riders. They
what a surprise.
they call you and say to you, this board's not quite as fast as what I expected.
Yeah.
And then you would say, okay, I can meet you at the beach and I could take it for a ride and see if there's something that I've done wrong. Take it for a ride, but then I place the board in the right place and the board actually performs. I might have to tweak the fins a little bit here and there, but I can get the board to work. So I put that down to, like, if you had to take one of the top racing drivers in the world, and you have just an average guy that's been racing for a year or two, and you take the world champion and you give them the identical car. It's made in the same factory. The tire pressure is all the same. Everything is identical. It's as if it's the same car. And you put them on a racetrack. The world champion's going to go around the racetrack, in three minutes. And the guy that's been doing it for a year or two is going to go around in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's all because the world champion would know when to accelerate, when to brake, how to approach the corners, how to exit the corners. And so it's all about experience. And that is only learned by time in the water. It's just going out there time and time and trying to improve yourself, not just going out there and riding a wave. Yeah. It's about going out there and saying, okay, what am I doing today? What am I gonna concentrate on? Let's try and get this combination of bottom turn, top turn perfect.
Yes.
And that's all you got to do. Go out there and practice that combination. Practice the bottom turn, top turn, and on every different wave is going to be a different scenario. So you might have to do a long bottom turn, a short bottom turn, but you're just going to get that combination right.
Yeah.
And then you could work on cutbacks, and then you could work on, your re-entries.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know I set a goal last summer, my first summer, in a sit-in kayak on some different maneuvers and things. And, I was also guilty of doing what I said I wasn't going to do, which was, all right, I'm not going to beat myself up this morning and constantly try off the lips. I got an hour and a half before work. I'm just going to ride the waves as long as possible and, just have fun. But I didn't get any better at my off the lips and bottom turns. So guilty me, so that's on me. But, Paul, how do you say his name? Paul DePaul?
I think his Facebook name is Paul DePauli.
Okay, Paul DePauli. Yeah.
I think his last name is De Groete.
Okay.
So Paul De Groete is definitely a guy that I respect for how he's helping the people from his perspective. As I'm a beginner and I'm going to start a channel for beginners that is a different viewpoint as where we're starting. And we, all the videos you see out there as people popping air after air after air. And it's like, okay, but some of the guys are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old that aren't interested in that. They're interested in, how do I start the sport at 65 years old? I've got a hip problem. I've got a knee problem. I've got a neck problem. I can't pop up on my surfboard. I really want to extend my surfing career. And now how do I just go out there and have fun with what I am able to do with my ability?
Yeah. He asked a question. He said, what was the most important lesson you learned in shaping? And if there's something you do completely different than like 20 years ago, lessons to be learned in shaping. I'm sure you did trial and error. I made a surfboard once and I'm like, well, this thing isn't really surfable. It looks great on the wall, but you've made probably thousands of shapes and different board sizes and things like that. I mean, you can't really go back in time. It's kind of a loaded question.
Obviously, the most important thing in shaping is, especially with styrofoam, is measure twice, cut once.
You
always must be very precise. And I work in millimeters. And when I moved to the States, I had to buy myself a millimeter tape measure that had millimeters on the top and inches on the bottom, so I could still relate to what I know.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to be as close as I can to the millimeter. The other thing that I can say is be very systematic in my shaping. Don't shape the one side of the board down to where you want it to be and then try and match the other side. I try and do it very systematically, bring them each side down systematically so that I'm working. The biggest challenge in shaping is not many people, no one that I know is ambidextrous.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
100%, no way. It's
if
true.
I am standing and shaping someone's board and I'm standing on the left-hand side of the board, I'll be shaping from nose to tail with the strokes.
Right.
If I go around the board to the other side, I'm standing and I'm shaping tail to nose.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Because I'm not swapping the tool around. So your stroke is totally different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got to be very, you got to be very aware of that you're pulling a stroke in a different way. So it's not easy to mimic one side to the other side if you're actually not pulling the same strokes.
Right. I've been cutting my own hair since COVID, so
you understand.
This side is always lumpy and out of shape, and I got a series of mirrors set up. I won't let my wife touch it.
Cut. I think measure twice, cut once, and be very systematic is something that I've learned from a very young age.
Yeah. There's another comment here from Chris Hobson. This is also like a loaded question because me as a newcomer, I would love to have like, 3 kayaks, at least two Waveskis. So Chris's question is, Ian, describe your perfect board and why. Yeah, your perfect board and why.
There is never a perfect board. I'm not a person that sticks to my boards. I don't keep boards. I make boards for certain contests and I sell them. And then for the next contest, I'll have to write another one. There is no perfect board because you have too many variables. You have size of wave, power of wave. It's all about, like we have world championships in Ventura. I believe we're surfing the rounds at the beach break, and I heard we are surfing the finals at the point break. So now you're going from, you possibly can go from one board operating at the beach break, but not necessarily going to be operating at the point break.
Yeah.
Because the point break, you're able to, power up the board a little bit more, or change the fin positions a little bit more, because you've got something that's going to be breaking on rocks. It's going to be more consistent. You can change the setup of your board. Whereas the beach break, you could have a different board where speed is very important. And also depends on the size of the beach break, because if it's going to be breaking like we had in the the US championships in 2019, I think the waves maybe got up to hip height.
Okay.
And so the boards were not getting out. My board particularly, I can tell you now that putting my 220 pounds onto a board, it was not getting onto a plane quick enough for me to do a bottom turn to create speed that's going to give me a nice slashy top turn. So, I had to be very careful of what waves I chose and where I rode the waves and where I positioned my board in that competition.
Yeah, and probably a better question would be, if you were on a desert island with waves and you're only allowed to have one board, or you were stranded there, what board might that be? I mean, I don't know what I've seen Chris on a IC. I've seen him on the Vulcan. I'm wondering what he would choose. But what would you choose?
Yeah, I would go for a board. If I had to choose a board that I would have to go all round general, I'd slow the board down. That a board would be more maneuverable, because I can generate speed a lot of times when I need the speed, but I cannot generate maneuverability when I need maneuverability in a design.
Right.
So I would probably say that I would err for a board that's slightly more maneuverable, I can turn it tighter in the pockets, get better pocket turns, stay in the power point of the wave, let the wave create the speed for the board, stay on the edge of the board. So I would probably go for a board that's, more designed for maneuverability than speed.
Yeah. I mean, I think with Chris's kayaks, for me, it would probably be the Apex. That isn't quite an IC, but it isn't that short. Floatability, maneuverability, catch a ripple, also take off earlier in the waves, and
Yeah.
or the mega surf kayak, which is the Banshee. And I see you have some on your website. I know the Dolphin is probably a little too long, but I'm sure you have models that you'll scale down a little below that.
Yeah, well, this world titles I'm taking 3 boards with, because the surf conditions over there, I believe, can change dramatically from very small ankle snappers to 10-foot beach breaks.
Yeah.
So I want to be prepared on my quiver, so that I'm able to choose the board that I need to ride the waves. C Street, I've seen that place breaking faces of up to 15 feet, 18 feet.
Yeah, interesting. And Chris says here, what are your go-to features? Concave, high volume, low?
Okay, so concaves, I'm not a fan of a concave. I just believe, a lot of, if you look at the surfboard industry, there are concaves in surfboards that run from concave to double concave to V a lot of the time, or they're running from a single concave and they just end off in a V in the tail, slight V in the tail to help with the maneuverability. I don't like concaves, especially when I'm going into contests, is because I don't believe concaves are the best for onshore choppy conditions. So what happens when the boards are choppy? Concaves create lift in the center of the board. So as the water's running across, water runs at a diagonal from your inside footwell to behind your seat on the opposite side. So if you're going right, when you're doing a bottom turn, your water entry is around about the footwell of your right foot, and your water exit is around about the back of the seat on the left-hand rail. So your water angle is running across the board. So as it's running across the board, if it's a concave, the water will run and create a little bit of a turn and then hit the center of the board, creating a little bit more lift underneath the board. Whereas if you had a V, if you look at any of these boards that are going to Nazaré or, Jaws, all these guys that are surfing those big boards, they do not want that board to bounce. So concave is out for them. Any form, any way. They have a V that runs from the nose to the tail, and that creates suck, because now the water's running across like this, and it's sucking your board down at all times.
Wow, interesting.
So it all depends on what, like if you were riding Jeffreys Bay, yeah, sure, put a concave in. And if you were riding Jeffreys Bay bouncy, I say no, put a V in. So again, Chris, it's all about what surf conditions you're going to be riding. That's why I'm taking 3 boards with me, is because I'm not too sure which one I'm going to be riding at the contest.
Yeah, that's interesting.
To finish off that sentence, the 2 boards that I've already made for the contest are boards that have got a double concave running flat from the front into a double concave under the seat, and the double concave has a V under the seat, and then it runs off the tail as a straight V. So I do have a double concave, but there are certain theories behind that for me, where I'm trying to get the board more onto the rail, use the rail more, use the half of the board more, and not use a flat, the flatter turn. So there are reasons for that.
Oh yeah, we have my buddy Ross here. Ross is great. He's the Kayak Surf New England Facebook group, and he was really helpful with me when I got into this, and found me a Cobra Strike up in the Bronx, New York, and that was my kind of entry into this whole world. And he does a lot of work with the group, and putting up information and videos and all great stuff. But he's asking, why do surf kayaks bounce so much? So, and it might be to what you.
Well, I think that would be, you would have to show me the kayak first.
Yeah.
I want to see seating positions.
Yeah.
I want to see V's. I want to see tail kicks. So there are a couple of reasons that boards bounce.
Yeah.
And let me put this out to you. A large percentage of the problem could be operator error.
Yeah, we say that as well. Like, and that can mean this. I've seen videos, insane videos of waveskis or surf kayaks surfing huge waves, and they don't have the advantage of leg and knee movement like surfers do. You know, you just don't have that.
Yeah.
So you can't really account for the bounce and the drop on certain size waves. But I got plenty of videos where I don't really see any surf kayaks or wave skis really bouncing until the waves get choppy or big and or choppy. And there's just, I guess, nothing you can really do about it. I mean, at some point, you're at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You are at the mercy of Mother Nature, but
and your equipment, whatever you're out there with.
Yeah, but a large portion of that is going to go onto the rider.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to go back to a racetrack. You're going to have a racetrack that is wet and a racetrack that is dry. You as the driver are going to brake. You're going to slow your speeds down. You're going to brake at different places. You're going to take longer to brake to get a corner. You're not going to accelerate as much as you accelerate in the dry. So you as operator are going to be changing things up when you've got different conditions. So me as an operator, if it's bigger, I'm definitely going to make sure that before I do any forced turns, I'm going to make sure that everything is gripped. In other words, my fins are hooked in, my rail is hooked in, and I'm initiating the turn, and now I can force. Because if I force too early, I'm going to bounce out.
Yeah,
so I do think a large portion of the boards, there are some design features that will make you bounce. And there are mostly it's your positioning, your as person, how you interact with those bouncy conditions.
Yeah, like I don't know if you've seen this video. There's an outrigger type canoe in Hawaii. You know, it's got the long hull, and then it's got the arm with the balance weight. That thing is on a giant wave, and they're not bouncing because the thing is so damn huge. But I got videos of you guys on wave skis and Chris, in a surf kayak, and you're bouncing because it's windy and it's choppy, and but then on the glassy days, it's not happening.
Yeah, so, I think that's more the let's call it water dynamics of the two different boards.
Yeah, I mean,
we have a flat bottom.
Yeah,
they have a round bottom.
Right.
So the amount, remember I said to you, V creates suck.
Yeah.
So the amount of suction that board has got, because it's rounded on the bottom, is just holding them in. So the water dynamics is totally different.
Yeah, like a sea kayak, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's all about the craft and not much about the rider.
Yeah.
It's longer, it's flatter. The hull it's just holding and sucking you into that water.
Yeah, and like you said, you kind of answered Ross's follow-up question too. It's a technique. Like you want to have your rail in. I mean, you're not going to bounce if you've got your rail carving into the chop.
Yeah.
If you're flat bottom and you're just bouncing off the chop, you got, like you said, it's a little bit of experience. It's a little bit of using the boat edge and the rail.
Yeah,
and working those bumps.
It is like that. It's sort of like you've got to ride that those rough parts, and you've got to feel it. It's sort of like driving in the wet. When you want to start accelerating, you start accelerating, but you feeling where the grip is on your tires, and you'll only give a full acceleration once you're happy with that, because then you're going to be oversteering, understeering. You're going to be playing with your steering wheel a lot more in the wet than you are in the dry. And so that's exactly what we're doing on the skis. We're trying to absorb the energy. Normally, we try and transfer the energy from our body into the boards. But now, because it's choppy and everything, we're trying to absorb that bounce energy back into our bodies.
Yeah. I get that.
Let me explain it this way. You take two soccer balls, and you bounce them. They have the same PSI, and you drop them with a machine at the same time next to each other onto the concrete. They will both bounce up the same height every single time. And that is because the energy of the ball bouncing is deferred out of the concrete, the ground, into the ball, and that bounces it back up.
Yeah.
If you take the same two soccer balls and you put one on top of the other and you let them go, you are going to drop them. They're going to fall down. The bottom ball is going to hit the ground. The top ball is just going to lay on top. The bottom ball will bounce up and send all that energy of its bounce into the second ball. The second ball will bounce higher than if it was just bouncing on the concrete. And the first ball that hits the concrete will only bounce half the height that it normally bounces.
Yeah.
So that's about energy transfer. And I see a lot of this problem throughout. And I mean, competitive riders all the way down to beginners. Everything is transferred. I see a lot of people letting the energy transfer out into the paddle blade. So they're turning, and as they're turning, they're putting their shoulders, and they immediately twist their shoulder like this. So they're doing a bottom turn, and the blade touches the water. The shoulder has a slight little tweak to it. And if you do that with your shoulder, all your energy that is supposed to be transferring down your spine and into your board is going out of your shoulders and into your paddle blade.
Right. Yeah, I think for beginners like myself, we're ruddering too much. I've gotten better at it, and like John, my buddy, was like, just lean, like don't need to dig the paddle in. Like that's where my mind was going when I first started. I'm like, all right, let me look at these videos. Let me think what John's saying and go, okay, I really gotta get out in front of the wave a little bit to the flat so I can do a proper bottom turn. If I'm too high on the face, I'm kind of just ruddering myself, and that's kind of one of my goals. But we had a question from my buddy Charlie. He said, what kind of training can you do? One, when you're in the ocean. Two, when you're in a pool or still water, if we can even do that. And three, when you're out of the water training, just to kind of I haven't been out in 2 months, so I've been doing yoga. I've been trying to get the core ready.
Yeah.
And just trying to get my back for paddling and such and rolling. But any tips in those areas?
Okay, out of the water, definite core, hip flexors, and strength.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't like to see you muscle up and become a bodybuilder, because that's not going to help. But I would like to see what you do have, what muscles you do have, like in your pecs, in your biceps, in your triceps, in your shoulder blades, to strengthen those up. So you do strengthening exercises.
Yeah.
And you strengthen up your core. Very important, because that's going to be fundamental when you're out there. And it's the one thing that wastes the most energy out there is your core, because you're balancing the board. Your core is balancing the board at all times. So I would say definitely out of the water, you want to be training strength.
Yeah.
And that'll prevent injury, and it'll help with power. It'll help with your riding. It'll help with everything. Flat water, cardio. So go out there and get your cardio right.
Right.
And
I love doing that.
As you know, wave skiing is all about short bursts. It's not about endurance. It's not about going out there and paddling, 20 miles.
Yeah.
It's about paddling through the beach break and then you rest.
Right.
It's about catching a wave, riding a wave, and then maybe resting a little bit in the front, getting your breath back, and then paddling out and then resting. So basically, you want to get your cardio so that you can handle that fitness. And then when I'm out training, it depends on what day I'm training, and it depends on what I'm actually training. I will spend a lot of time. I'll go out and I'll train on onshore conditions on a beach break where I have to paddle through, and just pound through for 10, 15 minutes to get to the back. Yeah. And that'll just give me that stamina to get through the hard breaking days. Or, sometimes I would say, okay, today I'm going to be training 20-minute sessions. So I'd go out there and paddle like crazy, like I'm in a heat for 20 minutes, catch as many waves and ride them and judge them for myself in 20 minutes. And then I'd rest 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And then I'd do another 20-minute session.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
And also there are times that you don't only train your abilities, you train your mind. And I don't see this much happening. So I do go out there when I'm training in specific conditions. When I'm paddling out, I watch a wave. I imagine myself surfing that wave, what I can be doing. And then if I go over that wave, I look back to see what that wave was doing. Was I right to do this or that on that wave? So that I understand what's going to happen. Because remember, the ocean is quite repetitive. Even if you're surfing a beach break, you know that it's, certain sizes are going to come through. It's going to do a certain thing at a certain time.
Yeah.
And so you've got to train your mind of, it's easier when you're at a reef break and it's consistent. So where the section's going to come, where the air section's going to come, where the cutback section's going to come, and so on. And you could train that and you could watch that. And obviously you need to watch tides, because those things change with high tide, low tide.
Yeah.
So, also train your mind.
Yeah, that's great. Looks like Dick Galloway has a question. One, he says, is the Dolphin more suitable for older riders? Which maybe we could go quick over that. But the other one, which comes up a lot, is our placement of the sizes of fins a personal choice.
Okay. So on a Dolphin, it's not age related, but more ability related.
Yeah, like a longboard.
And that could come in where you have a beginner at 34 years old that doesn't want to get to a tail sitter and have a problem with balancing. I could get him onto a Dolphin because he's a beginner. But yes, a lot more of my older folk prefer to have a lower center of gravity, sitting further forward. My water displacement comes from a different angle than what it does with the high performance boards, low volume rails. So I would say majority of my guys riding the Dolphins are older folk. And I can, like, I've had my Dolphin 8'6". I've had it 5 feet out of the water, hitting big airs with it, and I'm having fun with it. But I would generally say that they are for beginners to intermediate riders to older folk.
Yeah, that's great. And as far as fins go, we talked to Desi last week, Desi McGlinchey. A little different with the surf kayaks, but I know you different fins, different sizes.
I wouldn't say they're different in my answer is not going to be any different to a surfboard, to a subboard, to a waveski, to a kayak. There's no difference.
Yeah,
it is 100% personal preference. Okay. I have certain things that I have as a designer that I will stick to. I can down power fins by moving them more forward under the seat, and I can power them up by moving them further out towards the tail of the board. And I'm talking, about 2 inches forward and back.
Yeah.
I can also toe in and toe out. So toe in, more maneuverability, slower board. Toe out, more powerful board, faster boards. So it all depends on what you get. But once you got the board that we designed and what we agreed upon, then once you get that, it's up to you to try different fins. It's up to you. I remember one of the coaches in one of the professional surfers, the guy came back and says, this board's just not working. And the coach said, have you changed the fins? And he said, no, I haven't. He says, well, how can you say the board doesn't work?
Yeah.
It's like taking smooth tires out onto a wet racetrack.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even me as a newbie, I put some larger fins in on a day. I could totally tell. I had a really hard time turning it. I put some smaller ones in there. Yeah, it was okay. And then I kind of settled on something that I liked, an all around, and I moved them a little forward, but not all the way.
Yeah.
So right now, the stage I'm in, it's working pretty well. And I think here on the East Coast in New York, anyway, most all the wave sizes, I haven't spun out. I've been able to maneuver it. It's been good. But like my friend Charlie says, what am I supposed to do? Like, carry a screwdriver on the beach with me and all this stuff? I mean,
no.
you know, it depends.
Let me give you the fundamentals of it. Once you've got, like my boards, the 3 boards that are going, once I've got my fin positions, I will not change my fin position no matter what size I ride.
Mm-hmm.
So once the board is set up, I'll surf all surf conditions with those things.
Yeah.
And again, that's me.
Yeah.
You'll find some guys that'll slide their fins back. They'll put bigger fins in. I'm not that person. Once I've got it, I settle with that and I stick with it.
Yeah.
There are fundamentals, like bigger side fins will give you more hold and a lot more speed.
Yeah.
But it's also going to, be a little harder to turn, and you're gonna have to put more, power into your turns. So my preference is on the side fins. I go with around about 325s on the side, 3.25s on the side, and a center fin of 3.5.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, that's about 80 millimeters on the outers and around about 90 to 92 millimeters on the inner on the center fin.
Mm-hmm.
I put my fin boxes in the side, and they don't slide up and down. They are future boxes, and that's where they stay.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the middle fin, I have a box that I can slide my fin up and down. The first thing I do after I finish polishing my boards is I take a ruler, put it up against the back of my side fins, and I scribe a mark on the center line of where the side fins are on the center line. Then I measure backwards, and I always start off with a 3-inch gap between the back of my side fins to the front of my middle fin.
Mm-hmm.
Systematic. And if I find it too loose and no drive, then I move it 5 millimeters at a time until I'm happy. Currently, I'm riding at 85 millimeters, and I'm going to go down to an 80. I'm going to try that, and then I'm going to go down to 75 and try that. And once I've found that out, and I've done all those positions, I'll redo the 85, 70, the 85, the 80, and the 75. But then I'm going to modify the side fins, because at the moment my side fins have got a certain amount of rake. The rake on the fin will give you drive and thrust and less release.
Mm-hmm.
So if my middle fin is not the problem of the release, then I'm going to start sanding down my side fins and taking a 1/4 inch off the rake.
Wow, interesting.
And so once I've done that, then I'll have to go back to the middle fin and test the middle fin out again in those 3 positions, because I know out of the 38 years that I've been riding, that's my range.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll dial it in. Once it's dialed in, it takes me around about, it depends on surf conditions and how many times I get in the water. It takes me about 2 months to get my fins right.
I like that. I can respect that. And Paul's asking, I know you and I spoke about when you build your own boards compared to other people's boards. And Paul Scrutton's asking, when you build a competition board for yourself, how light and material layers do you build?
Okay, so my boards are not my personal boards. I mean, cracky, I'm 230, 220 pounds when I'm competing. So
pure muscle.
I'm a chunk of meat on top of a board. So it's not going to make much of a difference if I have, 0.5 kilogram off my board, I don't believe.
Yeah.
So my goal is to make sure that my boards don't break.
Yeah.
I don't go ridiculous. The last boards that I went to Pantene with, because I heard Pantene was a bit of a guillotine type of wave, I did beef up, and I did do 2 layers top and bottom, 2 layers 6 top and bottom, with reinforcement around the seat and feet areas. That's my standard layup for any board that I send out. The boards that I'm riding now, I have the one board that I finished glassing, I'm testing out. I have 1 6 on the bottom, but I have, because of the flex, we'll get into the carbon shortly, but I don't want the board to, there's 2 different types of flexes on a board. You have tensile and compressive. Tensile is stretch, so that's your bottom deck. When you're doing your bottom turns, it stretches. The top deck is compressive, it crushes, so it wants to break by compression.
Yeah.
So on the top deck of this board, I have a 6 and a 4 with extra layers on the seat and feet. I have 4 layers in the bottom of my feet, and I have 3 layers on my seat, and I have 4 layers over all my seat belt lugs.
Wow. Okay.
On the bottom, I have one layer of 6 ounce, but I went with warp glass and not standard weave. Standard weave runs 50-50. So you have 50% of the strands running up the board and 50% running across. On this one, I went with warp, which has 65%. I think it was like 2/3, 66% of them running up the board and 33% running across the board.
Wow.
And so on the stretch, so in other words, my board's stretching, I have a lot more strength on the bottom by having all the strands running nose to tail. And then what I did with that is I put in a diamond mesh carbon layer, which is going to help with the tensile strength. On my board that's my small wave board. On my big wave board, I'm definitely going to go 2 layers 6 and 2 layers 6 on top and bottom. Purely because it's the wave the board that I'm expecting to ride, up to 15-foot faces.
Yeah.
So it's something that I don't want the board to break. And so that board's probably going to come out at about 7 kilos, fully fitted out, which is about 16 or 17 pounds. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, that's great. Amazing stuff.
On the carbon side of things, now, I know Chris is listening. Sorry, Chris. I'm not a carbon fanatic. Chris has got a way... Kayaks have got a way different design parameter than we as waveskis have. We have a core. They don't have a core.
Right.
So therefore, rigidity is very key in their construction. But also, they need to blend the carbon with glass fibers so that you have the rigidity and the flexibility. Otherwise, the boards are going to break.
Yeah.
So on a waveski, let's just go to the World Surf League. There's been 2 of them run currently, one at Pipeline and one at Sunset, 2 of the heaviest breaking waves in the world. Not one carbon board. And there's obviously reasons behind that. Carbon is on surfboards that have got cores, on waveskis that have got cores, are too strong, in inverted commas. They are too they do not flex enough, so there's no give. So what they would do is, instead of flexing, they will break in big powerful surf like that. So that's why the surf industry, you see no carbon fiber boards. They're all just standard. And yes, there was a couple of surfboards breaking at Pipeline, but that's expected. And they're all made out of polyurethane and glass fiber. I think Kelly and maybe John ride an epoxy setup. But their epoxy on their styrofoam, they have extruded styrofoam, and we have expanded styrofoam. So we have different cores.
Yeah.
The extruded styrofoam is a lot harder and a lot more dense. Extruded means they basically take the plastic and they stretch it into foam, whereas expanded is they take the plastic and they steam it like popcorn into little beads, and they fuse it with expanding it. And our foam is a lot lighter, so we want lighter foam so that we have lighter boards, so we don't have these 20, 30, 40 pound type of boards.
Yeah, I emailed you once, I think last year or 2 years ago, and I was concerned about taking, it might have been a Dolphin or something around that size, and I'd seen some Waveskis, not your brand, I'm not even sure which brand, but with the noses snapped off, and you emailed me back, my boards will never break like that. Expect the ones that you sell or shape for consumers like me.
Well, let's just clarify one thing. You drive a Mercedes-Benz into a brick wall, the Mercedes-Benz is going to come off second best. Yeah. So I'm not going to say never break like that. I don't know I can't remember the discussion.
No, it was.
If you drive my board into the sand, you're going to break it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But normal wear and tear, the way that I construct my boards, I think you might have mentioned a stringer in the board.
Yeah.
I don't do stringers purely because and again, this is me talking, and this is just my philosophy. you're putting wooden stringers up against styrofoam. Styrofoam is weak. Okay, so what happens is when that wooden stringer wants to bend one way, it can bend the other way and snap. Instead of snapping vertically, it's going to snap, horizontally. I believe in the Roman arch, and this is what my dad taught me. All your strength comes from your wraparounds on your rails. So we as Waveski builders, we wrap our rails. So I have on my boards, I have 4 layers on my standard layup, wrapping over on the rails, which gives you this arch effect on the side of the board, and those combined on either side, and then they are your stringers. That's where your strength is coming in.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, Ross and I, a couple other guys, we might, the plastic surf kayaks, I treat that a lot differently. I know it can take a little bit more of a beating than the surfboard that I've been riding. I know I'm going to bail, not get anywhere near the shore. I'm going to make sure I just don't ride it into the sand. I mean, that's the same thing with the Waveski or any, surf kayak even. But someone else has a question here. How do you launch a Waveski in heavy shore break, Jersey and Long Island? Some of the launches, it's almost a vertical drop, and there's a shore slam that you just gotta either drag the ski through or just wait for your moment and jump over it.
Are you asking me how I do it personally, or
how about us intermediate and beginners out here in Long Island and Jersey?
Swim the board out, wait for a little lull, and swim the board out away from the shore, and then buckle yourself up.
Yeah, that's great. And
also, you've got, I don't know what type of beach you're looking for, but don't just randomly walk down to the beach and just launch your board and swim it out. Walk down, look where the currents are, because you know that you have on a beach break, you're going to have water pushing in, and then at 2 points where it's pushing in, you have channels and rip currents going out.
Yeah.
So you want to be in that rip current when you jump into the water.
Yeah, and
how I do it, what I do is I wait until a wave is broken, and I sprint down the beach holding my belt and my foot strap, my paddles on my hand with the foot strap, and I run down the beach. And as the wave breaks, it's sort of like a skimboard. I will run and jump onto my board, and then sort of hold my hands so that I'm skimming across the top of it, so I get away from that impact zone. And then I jump into the seat and I paddle 10 or 15 meters out away from that, and then buckle up.
Yeah, that's great. And to use, Dick is asking, I guess he's an older rider, but he's asking a leg leash or a paddle leash, as far as being safer than one another for an older rider.
Okay, I don't use a leash.
Yeah,
I buckle up and when I start, and I unbuckle when I'm finished.
Right.
If I break something like a buckle or my webbing, or the screws pulled out, or the plate or whatever, then I swim and get my board.
Yeah.
There is no right and wrong again on the leash side. If I had to wear a leash, I would, purely because your legs are in front of you. I would say that the leash, and the paddle stroke going from your ankle to the back of the board. I don't know how that would work. And also mounting your board and getting back on your board. If you have a leash, you obviously can't roll. So I'm presuming that when you're getting on and off the board, you have your leg, ankle or leg leash.
Yeah.
And I think that might just be a problem. So I always recommend a paddle leash.
Yeah.
So around the paddle and to the front of the board.
Yeah. That's great.
But again, listen, that's personal preference, and I've heard of leashes wrapping around people's necks.
It's
and that's paddle leashes as well as leg leashes.
Yeah. Well, it's great. We started a little late, but you gave us an hour of your time, and I mean, we could talk forever. I mean, I'll leave this open for a little bit if some of the other guys want to hang around and talk to me. Not that you want to, but
sure. I mean, if I really don't mind people texting me.
Yeah, you're
emailing me,
responsive.
asking me questions, phoning me. It's nothing just to give me a call and you say, I have this problem. This is what I'm doing wrong. Send me a little video. I can give you a quick little pep talk on, how to correct, or, just look at your body position, or look at the board, look at the water lines, and judge it from there.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that when I see people posting videos, because I'm the designer. So I look at people's boards, especially that I've designed, to look at water flow. So when they're doing takeoffs and when they're doing bottom turns and when they're doing top turns, I actually don't only look at what type of top turn they're doing, and I look at where water flows are, how water is pushing off the board, how waters are pushing away from the board, and so on. So I look at the water dynamics of the boards. I'm very critical on that, and I see a lot of bad water entries, bad water exits. Some boards pushing water, some boards just badly designed in the tail area, too much V, and so on.
Yeah. Like you said, I would love to see a video of you launching through the shore break, your technique of holding the paddle, and those are the kind of things that I'm looking for. I think a lot of us beginners are. We're not, we're beginners, but we're not competitors, let's say.
Yeah.
We're warriors.
Well, listen, if you're going to be launching out there, then, get your designers to design your board that has got a little bit more stability in the board. So the volume, the water displacement is coming from, not from the height of the board and the thickness of the center line, but, the amount of rail volume that you have. So, and width, so that you guys can get into the tricky situations. Any good designer will be able to design a board that you can get onto, balance, but still perform.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're our designer. I mean, I think that's what everyone's.
No, there's a handful of us unique people around the world. Impact, Waveskis down in Brazil, Rhys Duncan, Understated, Solomonzi, all those type of guys. They are heavy competitors, so they are designing their boards. So there's guys all over the world listening to this. So go to your designers and have them specific. Don't be scared to buy two boards and two different types of boards, because your designer will be able to design your board that will be able to work in different conditions. I have a board in the workshop currently that I'm busy working on for a friend of mine up in Myrtle Beach. Christopher, he's got his left leg missing. I'm just trying to remember. He's got one of his legs missing, and this is his third board from me, and it's not as if I've made him three of the same type of boards. I've made him three boards in total different conditions. One would be, for a lazier wave. One would be for high performance wave. And this current one now is a hybrid between the two boards.
Interesting.
So, we can design these boards for the guys that don't be scared to get, multiple boards and have a quiver that you could go out there and have fun with.
Yeah, I agree. And your role, I just learned, I think last May, on a whitewater kayak. I have a surf kayak. It's a little longer, so it's easier to roll. But I know my buddy Paul here is online. He sees, a lot of guys kicking 1 foot over. I'm assuming it's the shorter models. It's the more radical models. If it's the longer model, like the Dolphin, it might be easier to roll. Is that true?
So volume does play a role in how you roll these things. I've never been in a kayak. I've been told kayaks are easier to roll than waveskis, purely because they're filled with air. Whereas a waveski, the wider you go, the harder it is to roll, because you're actually rolling rail over rail. So the width plays a role. And also the older people, and I'm talking about me, I'm turning 50 this year. I throw my leg over purely because when I'm rolling, it's because I've either wiped out or I've duck dived. And when I'm rolling up, I'm in turbulence on the other side. My boards, when I'm sitting in the water line basically comes up to the top deck of my board. So when I'm rolling up, I've got to roll and sit up very quickly and then anchor myself so that I don't fall over again. So that's what the leg comes out for. It takes a little bit of pressure off once you've done the roll. You know, there's different ways a lot of people train the roll. Basically, is we all do the same roll, I think. It's just how you get to that roll is the difference of the other ones. If I had to train the people, my dad trained me to lie back, take the right hand, put it at your left leg, and then pull back and down at the same time, and throw your body the opposite way. And I couldn't get it right as a 12-year-old. And eventually, when I was 13, I said, I can't keep on unbuckling. Especially the one surf spot in South Africa where I trained, it was actually a ski boat launching area, and they kept on coming to us. If you knew what was just behind these breakers, you would never surf here again. So I was like, when they said that to me, I said, I have to learn how to roll. Right. And so as a 13-year-old, I went into this boat harbor. It's like a little, makeshift harbor that they put a bunch of rocks around. And I went inside there one day, and it took me the entire day. And I was frustrated as heck because at 13 years old, you're not as strong as what you want to be. And eventually it was all about technique, and I got the roll down pat. And once you got it, you sort of like, you remember, I spent 8 hours trying to do it because I was determined to do that. And so, I spent 8 hours rolling. And I had the technique because my dad taught me. I just had to just understand it. And eventually I got it. And then I never looked back from that day onwards.
Yeah, I mean, it's big, which is why some of us either choose to, have the leash and not roll, or are scared shitless of the sit-in kayaks like I was, and still can be on certain size days if it's breaking like a quarter mile out and there's just kind of, monstrous swells. And you said something good before about just being mentally prepared. And you know what? I mean, at this point, I'm strapping in. I'm going out there. I'm healthy. I got a life vest on. I've been in the surf my whole life. It could take me 20 minutes to swim in, and I'm fine with that. But other guys might not be okay, and it can get dangerous. So But like you said, you could practice that in still water, in a pool, in the bay.
Remember. Try and practice it in a salty water.
Right, for float.
More buoyancy for your board. The roll, I mean, it makes a big difference, that salt.
Right.
When you're doing the roll. So if you're doing it in a swimming pool, you sort of like you got no buoyancy on that thing to help you with the roll.
Yeah, and it looks like Ross is going to be in John Guido is going to be in your area next week, and I think he's going to pay you a visit, no matter how busy you are.
I'm going to lock my door.
Everybody wants to go waveski surfing with you.
Well, I am wanting to. It all depends on workload. Obviously, when I moved from coast to coast, I was shut down for 2 months. I'm only starting to get out, and there was a major styrofoam shortage in the last 4 or 5 months. Okay. So we are struggling to, hold on to our styrofoams. I've managed to secure mine now, but in the beginning when I got here, it wasn't so easy. So I'm sort of catching up, and once I get caught up, I'd love to come up your way, all the way up to Rhode Island. Yeah, I've got guys in Nantucket, I've got guys in Rhode Island,
Jersey,
New York guys, I've got New Jersey guys, I've got everybody along the coast, and I'd love to meet up, and let the guys come and spend a day with me, give them, just share and impart my knowledge to them so that they can get the stoke for our sport that we love, irrespective of what they bring down to come and surf with me. I'd love to see them.
Yeah, that's part of the problem, believe it or not. I mean, I'm outside one of the biggest cities in the world, New York City. But as far as wave ski and surf kayaking go, it's nothing like out there, even in California, and nowhere near Europe and South Africa and some places in South America. I mean, we have nothing to try out other than a few brands, but nothing, not your brand at all. And that's part of the problem that a few of us have, is that I can't sit on it and try it, even though it's not really designed for me.
Yeah.
Just to see if I'm going to even just like it, and if I'm good enough, and how my core is on this thing.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
one thing I can say is if you're interested in upgrading a strike, a plastic strike, or one of those type of boards, and you're upgrading to a Waveski, my advice would be, I mean, there are a lot of, not a lot, but there are secondhand models out there. But those secondhand models were made for very specific people, especially my brand. My brand, the guy comes to me and he will ask me for very specific things. And, if he sells it on to the next guy, it's not necessarily going to be for him. So when you're buying used, just make sure you're getting something, because the last thing you want to do is get something that's too tippy and it's the first time on it, and you say, oh, well, the sport's not for me.
Yeah, hate it.
No, that board is not for you.
Yeah.
But there are boards out there that can be for you.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very careful. It's not like the surfing industry where you walk into a shop and they say to you, oh, how tall are you? You're 6'2". Okay, you need like a 6'3", maybe this thick and that thick. And then you could get up and go on it, because on ours, it's very specific. We seat it in one place. How deep is the seat? How wide is the board? How thick is the board? How much tail have you got? There's so many dynamics when on a wave ski.
Yeah, like for me, all my weight, I got skinny little toothpick legs. So all my weight is right here. All my weight is, especially up top, right here, man. So me, keeping the core, the top stable, is going to be a lot different than my buddy who's got, more muscle, on his thighs and calves and such.
So if I had to make you a wave ski, and you just told me that, I would definitely move you an inch or an inch and a half further forward than a general, high performance board.
Yeah.
And then I'll definitely give you a deeper seat.
Yeah.
So as time goes on, the lower center of gravity is going to give you less performance, but more stability. But as you grow, you can add seat pad in after seat pad in.
Yeah.
And you could grow into that board, because the wonderful thing about muscle memory is that once you've trained it, you never have to train it again.
Yeah.
It's sort of like riding a bicycle. When you learn how to ride a bicycle when you're a kid, your brain will just kick in. If you haven't ridden a bicycle for 10 years, you could get onto a bicycle and ride it again, because your muscle memory is still there. So I think, once you get the muscle memory trained, you're good. And then you can start building your seat higher and higher and higher.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you. I mean, I can keep talking to you. I was wanting to see if anybody posed any other questions, but yeah, like you said, if you can make it up this way, Jersey to New York to Rhode Island, there's a bunch of guys out here, and we've got a couple of Facebook groups that focus on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So, as long as you let us know, we'll definitely put the word out there.
And if I could just put a teaser out there to end this call off. I am working very closely with a couple of friends of mine in this industry, where there is a huge possibility that I am going to be introducing a cheaper entry level type of wave ski soon in this area.
Yeah, well, be great.
So that it basically can get people into the sport without having a custom wave ski built.
Excellent. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let my wife know. I'm going to hit the bank account once again.
You know how many times I get that? I get that. Okay, when I'm finished, doing my sales pitch, let me speak to my wife and I'll get back to you. And then I'm like, oh goodness, this is not going to go good.
Yeah. So before you go off a call, I've been talking to Alessandro, and we're going to talk, I think, fins and paddles on the next chat.
Yeah.
And I'll have the ones in hand that I have, which aren't his brands. And then he'll have some on his call. And I've got a few paddles that we're going to go over. And I know that's also, I talked with Desi, and we had a whole thing about paddles and, how the larger size, might limit your strokes and things like that. And it's a whole nother realm. Yeah,
it is. It's people. I see a lot of people asking what size paddle should I go for, and it's like very difficult.
Yeah.
I know that Rhys Duncan surfs with the same paddle length as what I surf with, but Rhys is only 5'7" and I'm 6'2", and we surf in the same paddle. You've got to try things out. You've got to go out there and, okay, it's going to be your next call. So let's not get into that.
Yeah. Well, listen, everybody, I want to thank you. I thank all the listeners out there in the comments. And yeah, please let us know when you got something going on or you're coming up on the East Coast, because we'd love to meet you in person, and hopefully it's a demo day or see some product, take some photos, maybe do a little surfing.
That sounds good.
All right, Ian. Thank you so much.
Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Okay, you too, man.
All right, everybody. We're going to have Alessandro Baclotti next time. I'm just trying to firm up a date. I think in March, probably. So we're going to talk fins. We're going to talk paddles. So get your questions ready. I'm going to have some of the fins that I have here. You can even take some pictures and you can put them in your comments. And I'll be looking at some of the comments on Facebook when we do it next time. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.